So going back over TXVs, because I told you guys a little bit wrong yesterday.
Is this the inside of a TXV?
Yeah, so there's a spring, you got your inlet coming in, that needle that I was showing you, I just thought I'd go off of the forces. When I said external equalized, I was thinking it was how it put the, pressure back into this high side to low side. That was incorrect. All that external equalization is an upward force on that diaphragm that I was talking about to close off the amount of refrigerant going into the system. So it's right where the bulb goes, it's next to it, close to it. It goes over to your system, and it's a force that actually pushes back up. The only thing pushing down on this thing is your bulb force on that bladder, pushing down. So it's sensing that temperature coming out of the evaporator coil. And then the internal, and I probably drew this all wrong, it was probably in totally different sections, but basically when you're getting warm air going across your evaporator coil, this bulb is sensing that superheat or that temperature. It's getting warm too, so that refrigerant is pushing down on this spring that is set at a certain pressure inside there. So your refrigerant coming in on your liquid, high side liquid line coming in this way, if there's a high heat load, that spring is pushing down and it's letting more refrigerant through the system. Mm-hmm. This is for a pressure drop across that evaporator coil, because it has distributors usually, all those little tubes inside the evaporator coil going to each one of the little knuckles in there. That comes over, well, the external equalizer comes over and it gives it an extra pressure, closing pressure, so it's pushing back against this. Same with the spring. So the cooler it is in the building, the cooler the air going across that evaporator coil, the less heat, the less downward force, less opening is happening. So less refrigerant is going to be flowing through. If that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the external equalization is just another force driving up to give it more push and pull against how much refrigerant is coming through the system. It just makes it more accurate.
A teeter-totter.
Yeah, exactly. And I was telling you guys that it was to stabilize the pressure from your high side to your low side after it shuts off. That was wrong.
There's a different thing that does that, or does it also do that?
It just, it's going to let refrigerant through, and it will allow it to equalize just through the system.
So it also does that too?
Not through this. No, not through this, because this is all up in the head.
But just through the lines?
Just through the lines, yeah. So that's why the 5-minute delay. And it doesn't help. This doesn't do anything with that. So I was way off when I said that. So I watched a couple videos, read a few things. I'm like, I better address this external equalization. And then internal equalization is just the pressure coming, the back pressure from here will be forcing that back up. So that's why on a smaller system, like a little refrigeration system, you won't have externally equalized TXVs. On a larger one with a bigger evaporator coil, like that dehumidifier we're pulling out, it had a big external equalization tube that you went through. It had its own little dryer filter going up. It was a big dog. And that was that pushing force to push that back up. So when that temperature is way high, or going across that thing, the pressure on the outlet right there, it would still be low because you're still dropping it. So the pressure on this would overcome any pressure coming back this way or your spring. That's if your temperature's way high going across that evaporator coil, your bulb outdoes it all, and it forces that system open and adds more refrigerant to the system. So the higher the heat load, the more refrigerant flowing through the system. The lower the heat load, less refrigerant flowing through the system. That's basically what that does. It's just a metering device, and all it's doing is making sure that if there's a higher heat load on the building, it's adding more refrigerant to the system, so you're not starving your evaporator coil and boiling off too soon. It's adding more refrigerant, so it maintains a better constant superheat going back to the compressor.
That's why they're better than pistons. Well,
Correct. Yeah.
efficient.
On a higher heat load with a piston system, it's not sending any more refrigerant. It's just boiling off faster. So that's why you're going to start seeing. Well, not start seeing. They've been around forever. So it's just the way that they work. And an EEV is a little different, and that fixed orifice is pretty simple. So, any questions on?
How much
flow?
is the part?
It is what it is. I mean, they're like $200 or something.
Can you set that spring differently?
Actually, it's set from the factory for a certain amount.
Oh.
You know,
So you can buy the right one.
yeah, you can set them. That's when you check your superheat, and you can adjust that. So like you can screw that up and close that off, increasing your superheat as you close it off, and then unscrew it so it's less spring pressure. So this driving force will open it up, so you'll have more refrigerant flowing through and less superheat. So that's how you set. Sometimes that's how you set your superheat.
Yeah, I was gonna say so. Then you can balance it like that.
You can, but you shouldn't really need to. They should come
just be
preset.
right.
But that doesn't mean like on refrigeration systems when you're like, this thing really requires 6 degrees superheat. There's like a little screw. Sometimes it's an Allen head, sometimes it's a flat head, sometimes it's a little square bit. Doesn't really matter. But all that is you're just adjusting that spring tension. So that's a good question. So
That's where those like ones you can hook up and look at your phone would be nice, because you could go in and check everything while you're looking at it.
there's apps and stuff. Like
Just-
Dan Frost makes them, and a Revco. They're just a kind of like a carrier dealer, but they have all kinds of different tools that you can do to check this. On an evaporator coil, they have an actual tap inside there where you can put your gauges on. It's all for setting your superheat subcool and how adjusting your spring if need be. Shouldn't really need to on a system. It's
You have the right TXV for it.
yeah, you gotta have the right TXV because the bulb is charged with a like refrigerant. Usually it's the same one. So if it's a 410A, this bulb and this bulb here, that refrigerant's never mixed. It's just in the bulb.
Oh.
It's
Completely separate.
It's a completely separate thing. So it's like this refrigerant from the internally equalized system that's pushing up against that bladder or that thing there is different. This refrigerant never touches this refrigerant. And so that's why you have to have the right, you can't put an R22 TXV into a 410A because this refrigerant isn't going to sense the same, it's going to be boiling off at different temperatures. And the spring is going to be set differently because R22 runs at a lower pressure, 410A is much higher pressure, and yeah.
So you want the refrigerant in the
TXV.
whatever you call it.
The bulb, yeah, the same.
To be the same as
Same, yeah.
in the system.
Now in refrigeration world, we kind of bounce around so often that a lot of times what's in here isn't exactly, but it's close. So like if it's an old R22 system, that bulb still has R22 in it, but you might be using, some other kind of a an MO99 or whatever, a different drop in. You got to take all that refrigerant out and then put the whole system in. And then in a real application, you do need to go over and check your superheat subcool, and you might have to adjust your spring pressure on that situation because that refrigerant is different than in there. And so what's coming through is going to be slightly different. So just thought I'd clarify that. Externally equalized TXVs, all that external thing is an upward force to help modulate how much refrigerant is flowing through that system. It is not on when the system shuts off and it equalizes from high side to low side. So only been doing this for 20 years and still learning something new every day. So there you go.
Killer.
Yeah. Any questions on that? All right. Now we all know.